Assalamu alaikum and namaste to everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Karak Chat podcast. Today we're joined by Cameron Lee Roberts. He's the founder and the CEO of YP Club. Please check that out and like and subscribe to us. And also shout out to the Poker Cafe. Thank you Reshmi and Prod for having us. And we're in the Karama branch today, so please do come and check them out as well.
And I'm taking this home.
No, he's not. I'm really sorry about that. Anyways, see you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of Karak Chat podcast. Today we are being joined by a very special guest. He is the founder and the CEO of the YP Club, Mr. Cameron Lee Roberts. Welcome to the show, Cameron.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm super excited.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for accepting it in the first call. And I was thinking 50-50. You're going to be here or not. You're going to accept the invitation or not.
I think it's just showing support for the members, though, right? Like, I've done a few with our members and stuff, and I just fully encourage it. Like, for you to go out there and say, I'm going to do a podcast. It takes consistency and time to nurture a podcast and get it going. So, I'm all for it. I'm here to support. So whatever I can do, if it's just 1-2 hours of my day, then, it's the best use of my time.
That's really nice. And you, I think you mentioned it yesterday, right? You've got 40
new applicants.
And then you're going through. How's it feel? Has it been very busy for you?
It's a good question because this year has been such a ride for us, and we've had our lows. We've had really bad lows, and I think it's good to talk about those. So in January we were hacked. I had a malicious hack which just set our business back so much. We lost half of our members, and that was just a really scary time because essentially when you get hacked, you're fighting something you don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Right? You physically don't know where it's coming from, and so we were in the process of building a new platform. Then we got hacked, and then we knew it would be hard to migrate members across anyway. The hack happened a month before we were due to migrate. Crazy timing. So you already knew all the challenges with migration. That we were working with a company to understand how would you take one person from one system to the other, right? Because they have to update their card details, complete some of their profile again, and then you get hacked. You're like, shit, this is going to be so much more challenging. So this year's been a roller coaster to say the least, but this month, and I see it like this: when you're creating a business, there's so many different components to it, right? It's not just running events; it's all the stuff in the back, and the SOPs, who's hiring what, who's managing what, how do we manage our tasks, how are we as efficient as possible, how do we communicate with each other, and I felt like all of that's come together. The hiring has been quite aggressive. There's 15 or 16 people behind YP Club now.
Okay.
And this month, it's just come together, and we've had 240 applications so far this month. By far the biggest, double our previous biggest month, which was last September. We did 120.
Okay.
But now it's application process, so it's we only accept 50% of them, roughly 50 to 60%. But yeah, man, it feels good because so many times I wanted to pull away.
Okay, important thing. I know we already got into this, but to the people who don't know what the YP Club is, how would you define the club?
Yeah, so the most simple way that I always define it is YP Club is a members club for like-minded professionals to meet, grow, and have a good time. So we've changed our kind of tagline so many times.
Yeah.
Because the tagline I now understand is really important because it sends the right message to the right customer.
Yeah.
So for us, we've become muddled up in terms of, are we professionals, are we entrepreneurs? But effectively, we are predominantly still professionals, even though there's so many entrepreneurs. But Gymshark did a campaign recently, and it got me thinking. It was we do gym.
Yeah.
And as a team, we were what do we do? We do so many things. And ultimately, our core selling or our unique selling proposition is the connection piece.
Exactly,
so regardless of the perks platform, the educational platform, the curated match and stuff and everything that we do, at the end of the day, are we making sure that people are meeting the right people? And then the having a good time is just ultimately what YP has always stood for, right?
Yeah.
You come as you are, have a good time, and there's no pressure ultimately. It's not you have to contribute a lot to the sessions.
Yeah. So I want to understand, you were in the UK, okay, you were an accountant, I believe, in that industry. What made you move to Dubai? And also, what made you start the YP Club?
Yeah, so I think the first question, what made me move to Dubai, really, really interesting story, actually. So I was working as in a call center, answering phones for it's called Royal Mail. It's effectively the DHL or RMX in the UK, which was government owned previously. And I would just answer the phones, and I'd be troubleshooting all these different customers' issues, and it was so intense. So intense to the point that every 2 weeks you'd have to have somebody come in and give you one-on-one therapy because the calls were so bad. Like, people would say, if I don't get my medicine, I'm going to die. And you have no way of phoning the delivery driver. So if they miss the delivery, the customer phones you, and you've got older demographics, really challenging customers. Some of the phone calls I won't discuss now, but you can imagine that in terms of emotional distraught. I think I can see why people had the therapy. So I was waiting for my university results, and they came through, and I had the place that I wanted at Cardiff University to study accounting and finance. I just left that week. When I had the uni results, I was like, you're meant to do a week notice period. I was so bad. I just decided, I'm going to leave. So I left, and I was like, I would really want to go to Dubai on holiday. Like, my grandma, she's traveled to over 80 countries. I really look up to her. All the conversations that we always have is about traveling. And she always spoke about this place called Dubai, and she was like, it's $30 for a coffee. And in my mind, I was like, if people are there prepared and willing to spend $30 for a coffee, this was like ages ago. I was like, what kind of money is there? Like, what is the economy? Who's driving that? Like, who's got all this money to spend that much on a coffee? So I was like just researching and decided to book this flight to Dubai on my own, and I was 17 years old. So I flew over to Dubai. I was staying behind Mall of the Emirates, and I remember I landed, it was really late. I've said this story so many times, but it still just cracks me up because it's so funny. I was born and raised on an island in North Wales, so people don't really leave the island. Very narrow-minded people, because they've not been exposed to different cultures and stuff. I get there, and I asked the guy in the hotel. I was like, "I need to order food. Like, where do I go to where's the cafes, whatever?" At this time, he handed me an iPad, and he was like, "There's KFC and Pizza Hut there," and I was like, "What? This is insane!" Like, food delivery at that time was just not known to me. I don't know even if it existed anywhere else, but my mind was blown. I ordered it, and I was just waiting. He was like, "No, sir, it goes to your room." So I was like, "What? This is insane." So I went to my bedroom, and I'm just patiently waiting. I remember I ordered a massive pizza and a massive dessert pizza, which is just this chocolate cake basically. And I remember the guy knocked on my door. I was like, it can't be. And then I opened the door, and there's just a pizza delivery driver. And then I just fell in love. That 4 or 5 days I was here basically on my own, just exploring, going to the Burj Khalifa. I did the desert safari. And the biggest thing that hit me and really resonated with me was the etiquette of people in Dubai. The culture here, although there's such a mix of people, people are so respectful. They treat you very courteous. These people are so courteous, and when you leave Dubai and then you compare the hospitality to somewhere else,
makes sense.
It's the way that you're treated is just so nice, and I find everyone so kind here. So immediately I just fell in love, and from there I really tried to make a plan to effectively move here, but when I was in a position to do so.
Was it I would say it's a cultural shock for you when you came here for a short visit time. How was it when you went back after that holiday? You go back to Wales. Was it did you feel a difference? Because I have friends in there in UK, when they go back and they're like, "Man, I missed that." Maybe that security over there, the safety, other people alive. How's it for you?
I think the biggest thing for me was I just didn't feel like I belonged there. It was really strange. Even before coming to Dubai, the 4 or 5 months before, I'm really strange for this. I will use maps, and I will go and drop the icon, and I will move myself around the streets to familiarize myself with the area as much as possible. So when I knew I was moving to Dubai, I was familiarizing myself with everything. Which gym am I going to use? Which road am I going to take to work? Everything. Planning it all. So in my mind, maybe some people resonate with this, but I was already living whatever life I knew I would have in Dubai, and the life that I was living in the UK was almost it was just time pass. I was already mentally in Dubai, if you get me.
So this was your holiday in Dubai, and what got you back to Dubai again?
So I basically, during 2020, it was obviously the COVID pandemic, and I was working for EY Parthenon in the strategy team at the time. And I was I basically, there was these different tiers of lockdown, 1 to 4. So if you're in level 3, you can go out and you can travel and you can take flights. But level 4 is the most extreme lockdown. You can only leave the house for 1 hour per day. And there was like, I was living in Manchester. Me and my friend, we were talking about going to Dubai for so long, and I'd come to Dubai the New Year's Eve previously, I think. I'm just trying to think about the timelines. Or that might have been my first New Year's Eve in Dubai, but I always imagined like breaking in the year in Dubai would be amazing.
Yeah.
So we planned it, and then the night that we traveled, the UK government moved it from level 3 to level 4. So when I landed and I opened my phone, and I was addicted to the news at that time. Like, I would watch the news day and night, like 3-4 hours a day minimum.
Yeah.
So the first thing, instinctively, I opened the news app. I was like, what's going on? And then it said the UK has gone into level 4 lockdown.
Yeah.
And then I looked at my friend Alex. I said, shit, this is serious. Because I know the perception of us being here, like the time lapse, and everybody was behaving really strangely. Like, people was, my own family at some points were turning on me and like arguing with me and stuff. So when we landed here in Dubai, I was like, oh my God, like, thank you so much. I just knew that there would be some stuff like with people when I went home. And so when I got here, I like experienced it. I spent New Year's Eve here and it was amazing. And then, when I went back home, I just had a lot of challenging conversations with people that just didn't understand why I was in Dubai.
Yeah.
Like nurses and stuff like that. I lost a lot of friends actually because I decided to travel to Dubai at what was considered the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I just fell in love with it. Being here, I basically made a plan. I remember the time, Good Time Jamie XX was playing, and we had a private yacht. We were like outside Burj Al Arab, and I had the champagne in my hand, and I remember my friend was recording me, and the song came on just as it broke into New Year's Eve, and I had the champagne like that, and I said in my mind, like, I'm going to live here no matter what, I'm going to make this work. And every day I'm here, like, grateful to just be in Dubai. Like, at that moment, I went back home after that, and I was like, how do I make this work? I need anything I can do.
Right. So you didn't have a job in Dubai. You just came as in like...
I had a job. I transferred with UI.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's quite simple in that sense.
Okay. So you just got transferred internally to this job that you had, and then...
Exactly. So I was... there's a bit of a backstory as well. Basically, when I finished university, like my second year, I decided I wanted to do an internship. So I went to EY, and I spoke to the team, and I was like, I always had this dream of taking a year out, like a gap year, they say, right? And I spoke to my boss about it. Everything was good. And then the job offer came through, and he said to start in that year. So I phoned EY. I was very confused. I said, didn't we agree that I would be able to take a year out? And then I had a really rude awakening in terms of when you work for a big corporate, they dictate everything. You know, even though it was agreed verbally, they said no. Like, we have there's 20,000 people applied for UI that year in the UK.
Yeah.
Crazy numbers. And they just said, listen, we need the resourcing. You're either here now or you're not.
Okay.
So I started then. But yeah, basically I always knew I wanted to live abroad. And then during COVID, everyone was talking about Dubai because Dubai was the place that all the British people
And it was open to him.
It was open, but all the people with money that were from the UK were just traveling there.
Tax-free.
Tax-free, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep. Okay, and then how did you get to YP Club then?
Look, before that, EY. I know my friends, a lot of them working in EY.
Yeah.
They give you fancy checks, fancy salaries.
Yeah.
Why would you leave the job and think, oh,
I'm surprised they'd say that. I left and I had, I don't know if I can commit to this on a podcast, but my salary was tripled when I left EY.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When I left EY and I moved to Alvarez and Marsal.
Right.
I don't know if it's confidential in terms of like their remuneration strategy, but it's very lucrative.
I think we'll just beep it out just in case.
No, it's fine. I think let the people know. Yeah, but EY doesn't pay good salaries, like, comparatively.
Yeah, I mean, I worked there for I think 6 months right before COVID, and when COVID happened, they just let all the new joined juniors let go, and I was like, okay. And then I moved into marketing, and that's where my career kicked off. But man, EY was something at that time.
It's crazy, and I've often said this. My issue with EY in this part of the world, in the UK, had the best team, the best training. Everything was so thorough. Like, I would be afraid to contribute sometimes because I'd be like, these guys just know everything.
Yeah.
Whereas when I came here, the perception of the brand is very different.
Yeah.
And, like, everything around consulting in this part of the world is so different to the UK. And it took me a while to get my head around it because I was like, do I do I believe this is the best use of my time? Because I would like to think I'm a man of principles, and sometimes when I see something being given to a client and I don't really believe it and I don't trust the advice, I'm like, is it even worth the paycheck at this point? You know. But the thing is with EY that a lot of the jobs we would undercut competitors on price. Yeah. Staff it with junior resourcing. Yeah. And have them work so hard. Yeah. And that's the only way you can maintain the margin effectively on these engagements. True. So yeah, leaving EY. Although there's always like this family thing with EY, and I've loved it, and they've taught me so much. Genuinely loved my time there, but I just think it just came to a point where I fell out of love with consulting and just felt like I needed something else. So I moved to Alvarez, who are more execution focused. Okay, and now can I ask?
Yes, sure.
Okay. So YP Club, I think before was Dubai Young Professionals, right? So how did that come into picture?
So I think it was the most honest answer is when I was working for EY, I basically gave my life and soul to the company. Yeah. I lost my girlfriend. I had no social life. I went to like probably quite a low place in my life because I was just constantly chasing what I perceived to be career success, I guess you could define it as. And for me, I've always like prided myself on being the hardest worker in the room. So if somebody's going to do 12 hours, I feel compelled to do 13 hours. And I was like, it's a very unhealthy mindset, but when you're starting your career, especially where I was constantly traveling around the UK because I worked in restructuring. Mm-hmm. So my specialty is distressed companies, going in and doing the transformation, the turnaround, getting the debt advisory piece, maybe selling the company. And I was so fascinated by the corporate world. It was like everything I dreamt of, like fancy hotels, big boardroom meetings, traveling here and there, calling big decisions, raising millions in capital. Like I was just so sucked into that life, and it just took a toll on me, like mentally. Yeah. Because I just allowed it to define me. Like everything about me and how I felt about myself was directly correlated to my success with my career. And my girlfriend, it's so funny, it just came to my mind. I sent her a calendar invitation for a date, and she was like, "This isn't work." And I at that moment, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like everything works on a diary for me now. Yeah. Like I was only maybe 18 months into my career, and I was like treating everyone like a colleague. And she was like, "Why is it a tick box exercise with everything that you have to do?" And I'd go home to see my dad, and he'd be like, "You're so boring. Like all you do is talk about work." And I'm like, "That's all I've got to talk about." And he's like, used to be fun, you know, and like all of these things was basically compounded, and eventually I just felt I lost a lot of myself because I just didn't focus on what I perceived to be the balance between career and business. Yeah. And when I came to Dubai, I had like a really clear mindset: find people that I can relate to and make sure that I balance work with play ultimately, right? And wherever that community is, I want to be surrounded by people who appreciate life for what it's worth, because it can go in an instant. But also at the other side, they're very driven and very ambitious and want to do something with their life. And so when I came, there was nothing like DYP at the time. I was like, this is such a huge opportunity. Makes sense. There's so many dull and boring communities. Like, I don't want to be there. Like, it doesn't resonate with who I am as a person.
Yeah. I mean, there were communities, but nothing like DYP. Like,
exactly.
It was specific career.
There's so many.
Yeah,
I know. There are. But nothing that resonated to me. Yeah. And then I think that's the most beautiful thing when you go about to set up a business.
Right.
If you're servicing something that you genuinely need, like I needed a DYP. Yeah. I'd gone through the hardships of not having friends, social circles that are related to, feeling alienated, talking about business, dreams and goals. Yeah. And then to come here, I was like, I'm going to create exactly what I was missing. You know, bring something from like a deep place of pain almost and say, how do I create this? And like, if you see the applications that I receive, I see so many people in the same position as me. Yeah. Like, why are they not joining like all these business communities? You know, they're priced, some of them way more expensive than us, and they say that they do so much more. But yet, you know, we have the partner from Antler, which is one of the biggest accelerators. Yeah. We have the CEO of Salem, you know, the medical center, Amanda, she's joined. Why are all these people coming to YP Club now? It's because we're so focused on this balance between work, play, authenticity, connection.
That is true. I think when Michelle and I were looking at it, DYP that time, I think a year and a half ago, and this is what really attracted us towards is like that idea of just just networking, but seeing the people and learning something and the value it's giving you. So that's the unique part of it.
Yeah, I remember you forwarded me the link to this. Yeah.
Yeah, the educational stuff is so well thought through. Like, that's what resonates with everyone. Like, we run events, they seem like parties and stuff, and it's high energy and people are having a good time. And then 2 days after, we're running panel discussions with like the CFO of ADNOC, or next month we have the ex-CTO of Microsoft. So that to me is what I aspire to have my life as. Fancy restaurants, bars, but as well, like, let's make sure that we constantly focus on personal development and growth. And that to me is just effectively how I see, the essence of life, I would say, as deep as I guess sounds.
You did something which a lot of people aspire to do in Dubai. You started something on your own, right? But how difficult was it to leave your job, which is giving you a monthly salary, and then, now you completely left your job and then you're working on something which is unknown at that moment. You don't know if it's going to be successful or not, but yes, it's success, but that time it's like you don't know, you're into the unknown. So how difficult was it?
I think there's a few factors, right? So the one that I've just described is a place of pain that I had to kind of try and resolve for myself. So it was just a genuine thing for me. Like, I do not want to go back to that position. So that was number one in terms of motivational drivers. I never saw this becoming a business, by the way. Like, it was never intended to be a business.
Okay.
It was just something to get the right people into a room. That was it. And obviously it's evolved. But I think there's a few things that comes to mind when I think of like what made me really want to leave and like why I wasn't afraid when it came to decision. One of them I think I touched on was, did I feel like I was compelled to stay? And that comes from a place of, I didn't support the advice that we were giving in certain projects to clients. And I was like, I'm at the best years of my life. Like, my mind is probably working the best it ever will. Like, the idea flows, the motivation to execute. Do I really want to stay in a place where I don't feel I'm maximizing my creativity? There was also that element that my personality, I felt, in the corporate world was being overshadowed because I'm naturally quite a creative person, and I think I didn't really ever allow my creativity to flow through my work because you're always working within fixed parameters.
Yeah.
And like now my favorite thing is brand, UI, UX, design, marketing. I love that. But my entire education was like, I was always the highest performer in school. I always accelerated at like all the academics. I was the first person to become a chartered accountant in my age group in UI. I was like the highest in the tax papers, all this.
Yeah.
That's how I perceived my personality to be up until that point. And then when I started doing YP, I was like, shit, like I love the numbers. I will always love the finance. But the element that I never really got to explore was the creativity
part. Yeah.
And then the funniest thing was, though, because before leaving, I was watching all these videos on YouTube, and I've spoken about this previously. And I watched a video of Joe Rogan, and he basically said, if the highlight of your day is going for a shit, you have a shit life. And I was like, wow, bro, that's me right now. Because like I was just working by the desk, and I'd be like just working all day. And my highlight was just going to the toilet and just sitting on my phone, because I was like, I just need a break from this life. Like just Excel, PowerPoint. I've been doing that for 5 years. Excel on the big screen, PowerPoint there, and crunching the numbers, doing the analysis, and then, advising the client. And I was like, is this my life? Regardless of the paycheck. You chase the paycheck, you get the paycheck you always dreamt of. It was the weirdest thing that when I started getting the paycheck, I was like, I didn't feel any different. Like, I was like, whoa, this money for me from where I was from was big money. Like, could never have dreamt of that in terms of like my career. And at 26, I'm the youngest associate director at the biggest boutique restructuring firm in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, I just felt like an emptiness almost, I think it's fair to say. Yeah. I just felt like that my calling was something else. I knew that wasn't what was in that moment in my life. That's not where I was meant to be. And so I was like, I basically went to my boss and I gave him my laptop after 4 months and my phone, and I said, I'm resigning.
So, I would say I resonate with that, because one of the reasons why I left accounting and finance field was I was like, every day, every week, everyone just looking at Excel, same thing over and over again. I'm like, is this my life? like late hours, 1 a.m. I'm just giving my call to my manager. I'm like, listen, I've submitted this. You give it to the auditors, we'll be good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I took a leap of faith, took advice from him, went into brand management,
Amazing.
and then completely shifted my career. Surprisingly, my parents supported me. It's obviously coming from a Pakistani background. It's always like, listen, whatever you studied, accounting, that's the thing, stick to it. My dad's a chartered accountant. And but I think it was like a newer generation where they're like, you know what, I think we understand where this is going. Do whatever you want to do. If you enjoy it, let's go for it. I think 100%. That family support
kudos
really
to you, man. Like, I 100% respect that you've got to chase your similar journey to you then, like CA, and the passion's kind of branding.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. How was your, like, from your support or family background? Because, you know, the person you were describing, you know, like, you're talking about work and everything, that's like an ideal son in like a Desi environment from where we come from.
Yeah.
You know, if our uncles hear you talk, they'll be like, man, I wish that he was my son at that time. But when you shifted, you started YP Club, how was your relationship with your family?
That's a good question, and I could probably do the whole podcast on this, but I'll try and sum it up. So I like to do a lot of introspection, and I would definitely encourage people to do that. So that question that you've asked me, I've asked myself so many times, and maybe the answer changes depending on the day. But one of the things that I really acknowledged was that my dad has always been a workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
His dad before him and his dad before him. So I come from a lineage of men that have had massive businesses.
Yeah.
They've all been entrepreneurs. And the way that I think about why I'm such a hardworking individual is because I think men in my family would never have respect unless they worked hard.
Yeah.
That is the only way to earn respect in the family, regardless of... I don't think my family would really be... I'll come to my granddad after, but I'll say my dad first because that's probably more important right now. But I don't think he would be overly bothered if I wasn't like a crazy achiever. I think my family have always done exceptional things, and I don't think he was putting too much pressure on me. He always wanted me to be an accountant to begin with. He was like, he taught me every time we'd be together, he'd be going through like the times tables. Like I remember when I was a child, he would be like 6 times 6, like 12 times 12. And then I went on to win like maths challenges and stuff when I was a kid. But I think for him, it was just more about his son being one masculine. He finds that very important, which I find it very important as well. A man of discipline and just a person that works hard effectively.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I could earn his respect in the first place. But my granddad, completely different.
Okay.
His definition of success is entrepreneurship, and everything else is
secondary.
Secondary. So he phoned me once, and we had a very difficult conversation because I was earning what I perceived to be good money, and I had a conversation with him, and he was just like, he made it very clear that his idea of success wasn't what I was living. And he said something that really resonated with me at the time. He was like, I had so many businesses, right? I've had, 5-6 businesses before YP. And he knew, like, in my heart, I wanted to run my own business. I just hadn't found a way to really do it. I didn't feel like I had the tools or the skill set. And he was like, every year that passes, the decision to become an entrepreneur becomes more challenging because you have more responsibilities. I see that now, like, even outside of the business, like I've got property here, property there, mortgages. I'm supporting my mum and all these different things. And like, I'm not even 30 yet. I'm just trying to think of leaving my safe paycheck, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And then thinking like, I've now got kids, I've got a wife, I've got all this. And I was thinking about it this morning, actually. I was like, I've got bank debts on my house. I've got bank debts against the company. I've got a car. I've got this, I've got that. I've got, don't know how many salaries to pay. Just as you evolve, like the risk profile of making these kind of decisions becomes so vast compared to where you were 2 years ago. And that, I think, was a turning point for me. Those words. I don't even know if I've imagined them saying that. I need to have the conversation with them. Because, to be honest, like in my mind, I don't know if I was hallucinating. I just needed someone to say that to me. Because it feels like such a profound conversation. But yeah, that I think was kind of the key driver in terms of deciding to go.
Coming back to YP, so it's completely bootstrapped, right?
Yeah.
It's completely on your own. Like
I funded it all.
You funded it all. And I was saying that... So because you mentioned about like so many financial decisions that you have to make. So what else, like what are the biggest challenges that you have been facing?
I think that one of them is bootstrapping, obviously. I saved up some money, and I think when you look at your bank and you see money, it really supports your mental well-being. That's something I didn't realize.
That's true.
Because I've always, I guess in my childhood, my family business went through some challenging times, but I wasn't really aware of it. But in terms of when I've been in control of my own finances, I've always had money because I've worked for it. I've had businesses. I've done this on the side here and there. But then there was a point with YP, it was probably about two months ago. I looked at my bank account and I was like, shit, I've got no money left because I've just over-indexed myself on app, hiring, ads, everything else that comes with running a business and supporting the cash flow. And just found myself in a really challenging position. I was like, oh, wow, okay. I really need to go back to Excel because even now I spend so much time in Excel, but it has a purpose for me. I look at sensitivities, mitigations, all of this. But I think the most challenging thing outside of bootstrapping for me is people. And it's not something that I think I was really prepared for regardless of whatever I'd done, projects I'd worked on. When you're the boss, you have to make challenging decisions, have challenging conversations with staff that are underperforming, staff that you consider friends because you've been on the journey together for a long time. But when it comes to business, I've got all these responsibilities. If I can't have this one challenging conversation with someone I consider a friend, which is a huge roadblock in terms of the next step in the business, then I consider myself a coward ultimately. This is, life or death for me. In some instances, it's been like, I need to make this revenue this month, or we are not going to be able to pay salaries. So I think it's that hiring people, understanding emotional drivers, all that stuff. I heard.
I've heard different stories about people starting their own businesses and one of the biggest challenges that they have faced is that everyone talks about this, finding the right people to work with. If you don't have the right people, with the same kind of level of motivation, with the same energy that you have, it doesn't, at least for the beginning of the project,
100%.
right? So was this something for you also, a challenge, finding the right people and with the same motivation, energy?
I'm obsessed with this conversation. The last 3 or 4 months, there was a point when I was podcasting, the guys that would watch me, they were like, stop asking about hiring. But I was like, I'm fascinated by the whole thing. And still now I'm fascinated. If I get a chance to read any literature on hiring and hiring the right staff, I'm on that. I need to understand every perspective. For me, it was slightly different because I had James and Ben, right? And they have been such an important aspect of this business. I have done the blood, sweat and tears in the beginning, working ridiculous hours to build the credibility, the trust and everything else that comes with a bootstrapped community. Because community is ultimately credibility and trust. That's why the hack affected us so much, because it really took away a lot of the trust that we'd built. But I had the fortune of having them there. But the important thing is that Ben had his own agency, so he was able to generate revenue from there.
Right.
So it wasn't adding so much pressure to getting paid on time from the club. And that, I think, was really important. Although the salary, I would argue, and still to this day, I've said to them, I was like, you were getting paid good money, guys. You are getting paid good money for a startup. And then James was also working, but James left in January to come on full time. So I was really lucky that these guys, during that time, I think, really believed in the vision as much as me. And I think James as well, the way that, he feels about it, and just when he's there speaking to people, you can really see that this means so much to him as well. Right? I've obviously come and done it from a place of pain, but James is doing it as well from a place of he's proud to represent this company.
Yeah.
And when you're hiring staff, pride is so important. Everything has to do, for me, that's why I spent so much time on the branding, the positioning. If you look at the website, everything I'm so meticulous with, because not just the staff, but I want the members to say, I'm proud to be a member of YP Club. If someone asks them, I don't want them to be like, oh yeah, I joined, it's okay. I want to be like, no, I joined, I love that place.
Yeah.
It's done so much for me. You can never do that 100% because it's a community and, you know, what you put in and get out. But pride behind the brand has been important. One thing I would like to share, though, is a piece of knowledge that has stayed with me for so long and has driven my hiring decisions throughout, is the concept of A versus B players. And this is...
Sorry?
A versus B players.
Right.
So your best performers versus the kind of okay performers.
Okay.
So the argument is this, right? That your A player will outperform your B player up to 10x impact on your business.
Okay.
So why would you not pay a 30% premium for the A player knowing the impact that they'll have on your business? And I did the fireside chat with the CFO of ADNOC. He was the youngest CFO ever on the NASDAQ.
Yeah.
Amazing guy. Most humble, self-aware person I've ever met as well. I was just blown away by him as an individual. And James asked him at the end of the talk, he was like, because James knows as well that I'm obsessed with this conversation. And he said something so profound as well. Like, I'd never heard of it. And I spent hours on this stuff on YouTube and reading and stuff like this. And he was like, the problem is you hire an A player, they will go and find other A players. Right, because they're not intimidated by the skill set of someone else. You hire an A minus player, they're intimidated, so they'll hire B players. Your B players will hire C players, and your C players will hire D players. Because why on earth is a C player going to hire a B player knowing that they are better than them at their job? Just think of it. It's basic psychology.
Yeah.
The best want to play with the best, right?
Yeah.
And so this, for me, has really... Like, I've just hired the head of marketing from the Quorum Club in India, which is one of the biggest private members clubs. They do millions, tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And I was like, I have an opportunity here to really embody all this stuff that I've been learning. Like, am I going to put it into practice? Or am I just going to go for a cheap alternative and just hope that they'll perform? I just took a risk.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? This is my first business. I'm here to learn. If it fails, it fails. But at least I've actually gone out, educated myself, and put that into practice.
Right. I want to ask something for myself, right? It might be a little... It can be a little knowledge sharing for others as well, but suppose I want to start something, right? And the first thing that comes to my head is money. Where am I going to get the money from, right? And then we are talking about hiring people and all of this, right? And you need to pay them the money as well, right? So that they get the work done for you. It's always like, where do I get this money from? Because let's say I'm starting with zero right now. So how do I start?
So the key thing there is that the first thing you said is money, right? And
right.
There's two ways, there's kind of two schools of thought with being intrinsically driven by money when it comes to starting a business. First thing I would say is really important is if you're entirely driven by money, you better make sure that you've got an obscene level of mental resilience, because the money is going to just evaporate. Some months you're going to be like, I have so much money. And like this month, we've had a record-breaking month. I'm looking in the bank, I'm like, doesn't feel like it. Because you spend because you know you want to get to the next level. You know there's competition. So for me, I would look at it like this to start with. Find an opportunity in the market that you know will make money. Right? That's the first thing. But don't feel compelled to chase money to the nth degree, because for me, and everyone has a different way of thinking, right? They may get lucky and they've made millions and it wasn't, it just by chance. But there's been times with YP Club where there's been no money. Like, we've only honestly started generating money in the last few months, and we've been running for 2.5 years. I've been bootstrapping, funding it myself in between, And I think if I was only driven by money, I love money, don't get me wrong. Like, it definitely drives me. And it's a key aspect of who I am, because I'm like, I want to be able to build, support my family, etc., and have that kind of lifestyle that, I've always aspired to. But when the shit hits the fan, you better think, why am I doing this? Like, there needs to be, unless you're coming from a position of money, like you didn't have any money anyway, then that can be a key driver. But I think that's important. And then another bit of knowledge that I think is important to share as well, if you're in that position, is a lot of people get afraid of competition. They think this space is so saturated, like, how am I going to play?
Right.
there was the guy, one of the key partners or the senior partners at Y Combinator. He did a talk and he said something that just resonated with me so much. He was like, from all the companies that have gone through Y Combinator, 1% of them have failed because of competition.
1%.
1%.
Okay.
Which is insane,
Yeah,
right? Like, people just look at competition and they're like, I'm afraid like this person's doing this. Like,
Yeah.
think about me in Dubai, like one of the most attractive cities in the world for talent. I've got no money, bootstrapped, earning X amount of dirhams a month, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go toe to toe with these guys.
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking about it. I'm like, they're doing that. This is what I want to do. And that's one thing. Then the third thing that I would say is, if you have a business idea and you're generating revenue on the side, like from your job, continue to do that. But the key thing is, you learn so much when you do a business. So many things that you can take it into another business, and you can pivot, you can do something else.
Yeah.
Like, you need to learn about Facebook ads. Like, how do you structure them? How do you do retargeting campaigns? How do you optimize your CRM? What automations are you flowing? Like, how do you structure your team in the most optimal way? Like, none of that you probably know at the moment. So regardless of where you go, passion is always a privilege, obviously. Like, if you can do something you're passionate about, that's great. Starting is the best thing you can do for yourself, because regardless of what you do, you will learn so much.
Being a digital marketing guy myself, so I'm a digital marketing
so you know all about it then.
Yeah, so I wanted to
so
ask
you don't need that then.
Yeah, and just because you brought this topic up, I wanted to ask you, like, how much is digital marketing, or how much weightage does digital marketing hold for your business?
A lot.
Okay.
So if I think about how I think the business will go to the next level, I just think the most important thing is the perception around the brand. And so everything behind brand, the messaging, the tone of voice, are we luxury? Are we community? Are we understated luxury? Are we premium? What's the aesthetic? Are we minimalist? Everything that goes around that is so important to attract the right clientele. So I think for me, marketing I spent so much time even considering our ads. Like I said, the retargeting, what automations are we running? What's our CRM? How much? If you think about the top paid person in the company, that is the head of marketing woman right now. She's the top paid person.
Yeah.
I think that gives you an inclination of how important I find marketing.
Makes sense.
Because you need to communicate in the right way. Is like when you're trying to attract the best people in the city, it needs to resonate with them. The brand needs to feel like something that they're like, I'm like, back to the pride thing. That all comes through the communication strategy.
How did you convince her to join you guys? Was that difficult?
I don't know. I was really like, when she came, and even since she's come, I'm like, I feel pressure to grow at a different rate to before. That's what happens when you get the best people in. You're like, okay, now we need to grow. You know?
That's true.
Because to retain the best people, like, you know, she's amazing. She's great at what she does. But having her there, and I need to show her that this is the right decision, you know. Like, she's come to a company that is scaling aggressively and have big ambitions. So the second day that she came to the company, this is insane. She said, you need to restate your mission statement. I was like, on the second day, how could you? But she was right, you know, she was right. Like, I gave her loads of reading material before coming, and she was like, man, you're not positioned in the right way. You're understating what the value proposition is. And that it was effectively the connection. Like, before, it was like creating future leaders. Yeah. But now it's supporting emerging leaders. So the mission statement is now, our mission is to inspire meaningful, authentic connections and support emerging leaders. And the second part of the mission statement is, we want to create a dependable network for professionals around the world. So the idea is, for the global individual that want to travel to London, New York, Miami, there will be a YP club there. Yeah. That is now the mission, that you can just go into the app, find the right people, and be like, hey, what's going on? But it's been done in a different way. So many, like, Selenas of the world, they've done it really well. And then eventually we want to open our own clubhouses as well. So, like, you can just fly into these cities and you'll be like, hey, you can see who's there. It's a very much kind of an open platform. Like, I can see, Vishal, you're at the clubhouse in Saudi. I'm in Saudi on business. Let's meet up. I can see your profile. I know you're interested in this. I'm doing that.
Yeah. dips on the premium membership. Yeah, we want free premium membership on the clubhouse.
We just need to find the pricing strategy, which is like so far in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
But, it's a hard business to make money on clubhouses. We know that. So
you spoke about Saudi. I know you recently launched the YP Club there. How did you come up to that decision, and how was the industry over there? How did they perceive you guys?
Saudi is a challenging market.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in Saudi.
Okay.
So when I go there, when I heard you guys are going there, I was like, wow, to get the expected local population attracted, that will be challenging.
Completely different demographics as compared to
so different.
UAE.
Yeah. So I think the first thing to say is ICP is important, right? Understanding your ideal customer profile. This has evolved for us so many times. To the point, I flew to Zanzibar. I was like super stressed. I was like, I'm going to take a few days. I don't travel anymore. I was in Zanzibar, and the guys were like, we need to do a session on our ICP. I was like, I've just landed in Zanzibar. But I was like, you know what? It's so important. So I'm just like hooked up in the middle of this cafe, 5 hours on Miro. I think it's called Miro. Just going through all of our ICP, creating the personas. So what you have in the UAE is a dense demographic of expats.
Yeah.
Saudi, the Saudi nationals are the largest population.
Yeah, like 60-70% of the population. Yeah.
Even inside the club.
Yeah. Okay.
They're the biggest. That wasn't... I don't think we made a conscious decision on who we wanted to attract in terms of nationalities, that we've never thought like that.
Yeah.
I've always had the mindset of diversity, keep it as diverse as possible. So when I saw the Saudi nationals apply, they've got crazy profiles. They work out super senior in PIF, etc., etc. I was like, brilliant. But they're looking for something very different to what UAE are looking for. They're more about personal development. And my hypothesis to this is that they already have established communities.
Yeah.
They have their friendship group. They haven't flown to a new city. And so the positioning of the brand has evolved slightly in Riyadh.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the great things is that we have co-heads of Riyadh, right? So two people have run that on behalf of on behalf of James and I, effectively. And they're great. Mohammed Alanzi spent some time studying in Canada. He spent 5 years in Dubai. So he understands the culture and heritage of Saudi, but he also appreciates the wider picture in terms of the evolution that Saudi is going on, and maybe some people are slightly behind on that, where MBS wants it to be in terms of being more open. But I would say Saudi has been challenging, but I do believe that being in Saudi is important. And although we're probably losing money on the whole and kind of the Saudi activation, because I used to fly there, I was there for 4 months on and off, meeting people, doing the activation, understanding what people were looking for. But yeah, I have a soft spot for Saudis for sure. I really admire what they're trying to do, and quite courageous in the sense that only in the last 3 years, everything has changed. For everything before that, they were taught to believe this is the way to live your life and the way you interact with women and everything else. There's so much complexity to the way of life there. And for us to go and a white guy particularly to come and just say, hey, I'm the one that's going to solve all your problems. I'm going to help you develop. I'm going to help you meet the right people. And they've welcomed me so much that actually the part of me felt emotional, because it was they were so nice to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I did not anticipate this. Everything you're told in the West.
Yeah.
Everything before going, I was like, Saudis are mean, all of these things, pre-connotations. That couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
They're probably one of the most hospitable people I've ever met in my life, So, I hope the club goes on to do impact there, and I think that the truth for me is I'm not the best person to lead that. And I'm proud to say that I'm self-aware enough to say that some things I can't do, and I'm not the person to do it. There's 50 members there, great profiles. There's some amazing people there, genuinely.
That's great.
It's an awareness piece that I'm not the best person to run it.
Where do you, I think this is a very generic question, but where do you see the club in the next 5 to 10 years?
In the next 5 to 10 years, I would like to see YP Club in at least 8 cities, I would say.
Okay.
I'd say 5 years, at least 8 to 10 cities, and I would say at least 2 clubhouses.
Okay.
So my vision is I spend all my time on the mobile app, and that's my passion, and there's so much coming into the mobile app that the next few months are just going to completely change the experience. The idea is when you have thousands of members, you have premium real estate that people are checking potentially daily if you get it right. And I can just launch a new business through the homepage.
Yeah.
I just say we now have co-working space, and then I have 3, 4, 5,000 people looking at that a day, you know. And so that's the idea, to build out an ecosystem around the whole membership.
Okay, that's good. Somebody starting out their career in UAE, what's your advice that you would give it to?
My advice to someone coming to the UAE is take every opportunity that you're given, and don't allow imposter syndrome to creep up on you, because everyone here is just faking it till they make it, you know. Like, genuinely lift up the veil, and everyone's just like, everyone's nervous as shit when they go into these boardrooms, they go into these meeting rooms. And like, I think I suffered from imposter syndrome so much because I come from like the middle of nowhere. I'm like in Dubai and I'm trying to do this, and I'm like, yeah, I'm creating this luxury premium brand, and who am I to do that at the end of the day? Like, I was raised in the middle of farms, and all I knew was sheep and cattle, you know. So I think the most important thing for me is, and I think I see a lot of people with this imposter syndrome, and I still have it sometimes. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, it creeps up on me. I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, don't allow that to creep up into your mind. But I think a lot of people say, no, I'm not ready for that opportunity, and they're given that. Just take it, learn on the journey. You know, like, there's so many opportunities here.
Yeah.
And one thing I would say is, and this really annoys me in the corporate world, is like when people just come in for a paycheck and they're just like, just clocking in, like, do the bare minimum. I really despise that. It pisses me off. Like, you are there and there's so many people that probably want that job.
Right.
Put your hand up, because, you know, regardless of how I feel about the corporate world, it will give you a ridiculous skill set. Like, I was always around my peers, I was like, you know what, I'm going to put my hand up and I want to take this next thing. I want to do this. I want to do that. And before you know it, I'm like sitting in a boardroom with 20 people and I'm pitching to the CEO of like a multi-billion-dollar company.
Yeah.
Telling him what I think he should do with his business. You know, and there's amazing people in the UI and stuff like that, you know, were probably levels ahead of me even. And like, I always looked to them. And I remember my goal was to make associate director at 26.
Yeah.
Because there was this guy in EY, he was the AD at 26, and everyone spoke about him. They were like, and you know, the first time I saw him, I was like, I didn't know what to say to him, because I was like, this guy's like a hero to everyone else. And then when I was like, it's just corporate stuff, like you feel like you want to build up the ladder and all that stuff, and that's, you know, perception. But when I made it, I was like, I felt proud of myself, because I was like, I went the extra mile. I was the one that worked Sundays. I was the one that stayed on client site on Fridays when everybody else went home on a Thursday night. You know, I was the one that was prepared to do that, and I was rewarded for it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you know, your boss can see you putting that extra mile in. Like, regardless if you hate your job or not, like, don't do yourself a disservice. If you hate it that much, leave. Like, but don't come to work and half-ass it. That's just why exist? You know what I mean?
Making connections, how would you rank it in UAE market? Like, where would you rank making connections if you want to grow in UAE market?
Depends what industry you're in. Like, I don't want to... It depends what your motivations and industries are. I would say, for me, in the UAE, and this is crazy, you guys obviously know about Wasta.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is insane. Like, everything in the UK, from my perception, was merit, whereas UAE is like, do I trust you? Do I know your mum? Like, what did you do on a Monday morning?
Yeah.
Everything is about relationship, you know, and it was something that was said to me in the UK, but I never appreciated, because I was just on my own journey, and like, it was very clear what I needed to do to progress. But in this part of the world, it's like, you can't get a loan. Hey, my loan was rejected. Can you put it through? Yeah, sure. It is insane. Like, you have to have the right relationships here. And even applying for a trademark, my lawyer said to me, it was like, depends how he feels on the day. I was like, surely it's black and white. Like, it's either yes or no. It was like, depends. And there's been so many instances like that in the UAE. And, you know, I've got some really great relationships now. And my friends will be like, oh, can you do me a favor and phone this person? Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? And it's very much like, I think people like that in this part of the world. They like knowing that they have the relationships, and they like knowing that they can do favors, and they like knowing that they're in a position of power to be able to support the people that they want to support, right?
Yeah.
Like, and what I've noticed, like, there's levels to everything, and like my friends that are really wealthy, it's easy for them to make money because they get introduced to all the big deals.
Yeah.
They get, they angel investing on things that are no brainers. Right? They'll 10, 20x their money in 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Because they have relationships. But yeah, it is important.
It is important.
You want to ask anything else before the last question?
No, I'm good.
All right, Cameron, this is a question we ask everyone. How do you define success? And your vision, your meaning of success?
I think it's tied to two things for me.
Yeah.
Impact and happiness. I would say the happiness for me, and it sounds so cliche, but like when you've gone to that place in your life where you're like, I think I'm going to brace here. When EY days, I was like, if I smile again, that to me is success, because I went to that point in my life. And then I think, like, I've been in a position where salary and everything, like crazy amounts of money and comparative to what a lot of people would earn. And I decided to walk away 4 months into that. Like, I'd never earned money like that in my life, and I decided I wanted to walk away. But why? Because I want to feel like I'm leading a life of purpose. And although YP can become so challenging sometimes, like managing people's issues and lack of cash, but like if you really think about what we've been able to do for people in this part of the world as expats and coming here, it's incredible. And so I think if we can continue on this journey that we're on, and as a team, and like creating a team where it's just that we're having fun and like everyone's turning up to work and they're their authentic self, and people are coming to these events, meeting the right people. It's just beautiful, man. Like, life is so short, ultimately, and like having that ability to just do something with impact is crazy. Real impact that you're controlling, not like Excel, where I say invest 100 million into a hospital. Great, man. Like, that's easy. But are you making the decisions that are impacting people's lives? See, that's a big thing.
So should I say in brief that success to you is something that brings you happiness, satisfaction?
For sure, yeah. For sure.
To the people watching who are hearing about the YP Club for the first time, how would you tell them, how can they join the club?
So the application process is really simple. We've streamlined it so many times, so there's no excuses. It's 2 to 3 minutes to complete the application, and the team will review it within 2 to 3 days. Our website is www.youngprofessionals.club, but we're in the process of negotiating a new domain, so that'll be exciting.
Sure. Sounds good. Well, Cameron, thank you a lot for coming.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Great having you.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much.
guys. Cheers.
To everyone watching, we'll join you in the next episode. Thank you so much.